You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, the programme that brings you the stories of believers living in Israel and the Palestinian territories. Today finds us in Jerusalem, talking to Victor Kallisher, General Secretary of the Bible Society in Israel. What makes his story so remarkable is that he was born in Israel and his father was a Holocaust survivor who escaped there after the war. Victor starts by describing his early life.
First of all, I want to say that for me it's a great privilege. I really see it as a privilege to be born to a believing family here in Israel, because this is something that the vast majority of our people does not enjoy yet. So for me it is really a unique grace of God that I was born to a believing family, just like that. And this was actually one of the main reasons for me to come and serve God. I mean, it is a calling, but also I wanted to give God my best, and I wanted to give God something because of what He did for me, being born to a believing family again. So childhood, it's like any other child, I would think. But pretty early in my life, I realized that, I believe in Christ, that I believe that I'm a Messianic Jew, if you like, which means a Jew that follows Christ, and that my Lord is Yeshua, is Jesus. And at the early age of 13, I gave my life, if you like, officially, if you want to call it like that, because I knew that it is a personal step, although all my life I believed in God. And at a later age, like at your youth, it becomes more obvious because of the context in which we live, that most people are not believers. And to be a Jew who believes in Christ, it's something which is very strange and you can say even not accepted. Definitely at those days, people did not know what is a Messianic Jew, or how come that a Jew believes in Christ, which today is a bit different. But back then it was something very, very strange. So it had to do with my choices, if you like, in life. Who with do I associate? And which was not always easy. When I joined the army, I actually was in the Navy, and I did a longer service because of being a naval officer and dealing with sensitive things because of the nature of the role. And even then, this sometimes was an issue, but I think that with the time, even the Israeli army have learned that Messianic believers are faithful soldiers and are faithful in what they do. And then I joined, I missed the studies. I'm an engineer, an electronics engineer by profession. And I joined a large, very well-known high-tech company, produces microchips. And I was a manager of an engineering group. All through these years, I knew that at a certain point I want to serve the Lord full-time. I knew it, and I knew that He calls me for that. And the time came that I felt that this is the time. I really felt that I know that I need to do the move. And I was praying that God will lead me to where does He wants me. I know that He wants me there, but I was really praying for where. And He really showed it in a very... I call it even in a biblical, like an Old Testament kind of, miracle, if you want, really by His grace, that He led me to the Bible Society. And here I am for the last 5 years.
Can you just tell me a little bit about your father? Because being a Holocaust survivor, it's quite incredible that he could ever come to faith in Jesus or Yeshua.
Yes, that's true. So when he was 11 years old, actually the war started, and his mother placed him in an orphanage house quite at the beginning, because it was becoming almost impossible for Jews to live in Poland, and she wanted to protect him, so she placed him in an orphanage and told him not to ever say that he is a Jew and be brave, and that she'll come and visit him every weekend, every Shabbat. And this was the last time that he saw her. A few months later, the Germans occupied, maybe it was already that they occupied it, but they took the orphanage houses and they actually took the children to become what they called Hitler Youth. They trained them to become soldiers afterwards. But he was too young. But just a nice story, the Lord really kept him throughout the war. But just one example, when the Germans came to the orphanage house, they placed all the children in one big hall, and the German officer, the SS officer, stood in front of all of them, and then looking at all of them, he pointed to my father and said, "You, come here." So my father was sure that's it. Somehow he knows that I'm a Jew or something. And he came, he told him to stand on the chair that was next to him, and he points to my father in front of all the children and says, "You see, this is how a real Jew, a real Ari should look like." And he gave him a piece of chocolate because he looked, light colors and so on. And in any ways, they gave him a train ticket and told him, "Go and find your friends. You don't fit. You are too small. You have milk under your ears." That's what he remembers, that the German officer told him, "You still have some wet milk under your ears, behind your ears." So he went to his home and he found another family there. And they told him, "All the Jews are in the ghetto. You should look for them there." So he went to the ghetto. And there were guards all around, so he couldn't just come in. So he was looking around and so on. And then he found some kids, Jews, And he asked them, he says, "I want to come inside there, and how can I come in?" So they told him, "What do you think, that you're going to a camp? You cannot come empty-handed. You have to come with food." So he went with them to, get some potatoes and stuff like that. They stole in and took, And then they came through the sewage canals, with big rats and everything. And he was there looking for his parents, asking people. And then after a while, he met an elderly man that he recognized and that knew the family. And he asked him, "Do you know where my parents are?" So this man told him, "You see, in this place there is no mother and there is no father, there is no sister, nothing. It's only you. And if you don't take care of yourself, you'll end up like this." And he pointed to people who were laying on the streets, just waiting to die. That's all. Too weak, or people that died out of hunger, disease, and so on. And he realized that he's also becoming a skeleton like that. And in the ghetto, people were just laying, even if you're not totally dead, there were those that take you on the cart and just garbage, throw it as garbage. At one day, he had the courage, or maybe the despair, you can say, to say that that's it, I'm jumping from the fence. And he went on one of the roofs that was just next to the wall. It was a dark night, raining. He jumped, and he thought to himself, "If I die, it's even better like that." He jumped out, and he actually jumped next to two German patrol soldiers, and they were too shocked to do anything immediately, and he just ran to the forest, and they were shooting at him. And then actually he was starting to live, just outside in the forest. There is a whole book about it, so I won't go through all the story. But he just spent the Holocaust running from one place to another. And the Lord just saved him from so many cases that for sure he should have been dead, And then after the war, he came to Israel on a boat that was a fishing boat fit for a maximum of 40, 60 people, and they were 600 of them, Jews. And he remembers that the captain was actually every now and then would tell a group of people, "You go to the right side," so to balance the ship, But when they approached the shores, a British crusade actually caught them, and they put them in Cyprus for 8 months in a camp. That he says that the food there was enough not to die, but not enough to live on. But after 8 months, they came here, and they were all just taken, all that were fit, immediately to the army. So, they just took them, you and you and you, to the Air Force. And the Air Force maybe was one Piper, and you and you and you to the Navy. The Navy was maybe a fishing boat, and he was chosen to be to work in the mines, meaning to dismantle mines and put mines, which is like a one-time mistake kind of a job, and straight to the army. So again, he found himself, in a war, but he says that in this time, the people that were with him, they are Jews from different places, speaking different languages. The officer might not know Hebrew, and he would be a Russian, and the soldiers from Poland, and so on. And somehow things worked out. And also, and the other thing was that he was not afraid of death. He was just, he saw death so much times, and things that he told us as children. He shared with us every Shabbat in the morning. He would make breakfast and share stories. And some of the things, he said, that he told us, he said, these are things that I couldn't even write in the book because people will think that I'm inventing it. Who would believe that a thing like that can happen? That, 2 German SS soldiers will find a boy, his friend, that stolen something from a store to eat because he was hungry, and they caught him and they tore him apart, each one holding, part of him. Who would believe it? I mean, you would not think that that's a lie. But these things are things that he saw.
Victor Kallisher, a Jewish believer living in Israel, sharing his story. And we'll hear more from Victor on next week's programme. You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab and Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. So if you'd like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either visit our website, olivetreefund.org, or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, PO Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Do join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.